There is a garden, there is a city, and there's a kingdom of God. And it is beautiful, and he is bringing it right now into our midst.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today with Living Word Online. This is the second Sunday since our world has changed and what we had to do to bring the church services to you since you're not able to come to us. So again, thanks for being here. Very special welcome to all of you who might not normally be a part of Living Word, and word's been getting out and you're joining us. We're really glad that you're with us and hope that this will be very, very helpful. We are changing a lot of things. So today is the first day that we are live streaming at 8 o'clock, 9:30, 11 o'clock, and then also tonight at 6 o'clock. And we'll probably have some more options in the next weeks ahead, which leads me to the next thing. We've had to redesign our website so we could focus and prioritize the most important things that you guys need to know as life has really changed for us right here at Living Word. So be sure to go and check out our new homepage. It's going to be so much more helpful, especially for you to get in touch with the resources that we are working on almost every day to get out to you. One of the new things we'll be doing is we will be having these mini messages. They're like 5 minutes, maybe up to 10 minutes. Really, really helpful stuff that you'll find will make it possible for you to have a better experience as we are living in our current times. Hey, I want to say thank you so much to our worship team. They have been working so hard to put together really meaningful worship to help you and I connect with the heart of God. We need that so much during this time. Pastor Aaron, thanks so much for praying the way you did for us. We need all the prayer we can get. We need a lot of supernatural divine help. And Pastor Brian, thanks for that really good word, just so full of love for us that we're in hard times, and yet we're still being invited by God to trust him and to support the good things that he is doing right here at Living Word. So thanks to all of you for your generosity during this during the season. So as you know, we had a series planned, and we completely had to let that go and come up with a whole new series. And so what the new series is in the time of Corona. And today our topic is life together in the time of Corona. So one of the things that I was really aware of in the book of Acts, there's this really very, very interesting phrase that appears many, many times, and it is they were all together. It just appears a bunch of times. So in Acts chapter 2, verse 1, the church is being born in Acts chapter 2. It did not exist. And suddenly, with this new dynamic work of God, all these people are coming together. And so we read in verse 1. When the day of Pentecost came, they were all together in one place. And then you read through the rest of the chapter and all the exciting things happening as they were all together. And we come down to verse 44, and we read again, there's a phrase, all the believers were together. And just another verse or so after that, I mean, every day they continued to meet together. They were meeting together in homes. They were meeting together in the temple courts. We turn over to chapter 5 after a lot of exciting things are taking place. And we read this phrase, and all the believers were meeting together. And then they actually say where they're meeting together. It's a large public place that can accommodate the thousands of people that were a part of what God was doing. We turn over to chapter 6, and in verse 2, we read about another little thing going on. There's a very important ministry need. And so the 12, now that's a reference to the apostles, the leadership team, the 12 gathered all the disciples together, and they just sat down and they talked about these really significant things and issues that they were having to deal with. I mean, just over and over and over, we are hearing this language that they were all together until we come to chapter 8, and then suddenly the language changes. In Acts chapter 8, verse 1, now they are all scattered. Hey, let me give you Brian's paraphrase of chapter 8, verse 1. On that day, a great coronavirus broke out, and the church, all except the apostles, they were scattered throughout Judea and Samaria. I mean, something really significant had happened, a disruptive event. Now, it wasn't the coronavirus. In this case, it was actually a persecution breakout. And what happened is the leaders were able to stay there, and it's kind of like the headquarters, a central area, but everybody else, they were scattered and they just had to disperse. And now life began to change very, very significantly for the church. They went from being a gathered together people doing life together with lots of love and energy and connection to now being scattered apart. I mean, what a change that must have been as they were just used to this rich connection, and now suddenly they were apart. That's our current new normal, or should I say it's our current new abnormal. And I say current because it's what we're going through right now. I hope it's not unending, but it is current. And while it's normal, it doesn't quite feel normal. It feels a bit abnormal. But that's what we're going to have to learn to deal with for this particular season of life. What does it mean to do life not together, but to do life as we are scattered apart from one another? It's not just the church that's dealing with this. We're all dealing with this. I mean, you guys have seen that before and after pictures, haven't you? St. Peter's Basilica, that's before Corona, and this is after Corona. St. Mark's Square filled with people, not today. Stadiums all over the world, places of immense crowds getting together for exciting fun times, but not today. I love this concept of Grand Central Station. It's one of those hubs of network, people coming and meeting and dispersing, and that's before Corona, but not today. That's just the new world that we're living in. I don't watch it too often, but every now and then I'd watch Family Feud. You know how that is. There's two different families, and they're trying to guess certain things. And what they wind up doing is they pick a question or a topic. It might be something like, "What kind of things would you find in a car glove compartment?" And then the crowd's going to wind up trying to figure out, what's going to be in there. Or there might be something. Where are you most likely to find in a woman's pocketbook? Well, let me just take that idea for a moment and say, let's say back maybe Christmas time, just last year, 3 months ago, if there was a Family Feud question and they said, when you hear the word Corona, what comes to mind? And the survey says people would have said beer. That's the only thing they would have thought of when they said Corona. Audience says beer. That'd be the number one answer. Answer number two, Corona Light. That would have been the second answer. I mean, there's not much associated with it. Now, maybe if people would have been a little bit savvy, thinking, well, I wonder if there's a town called Corona in Mexico. And sure enough, there is the Villa of Corona. And then maybe a few people have thought of, oh, well, if there's something in Mexico, maybe there's one in Spain. And by the way, there is. It's called the Villa Corona, right on the Mediterranean in the south of Spain. I've actually been really, really close to that spot when I did a conference over there a couple of years ago. Just beautiful. And then I started thinking, I wonder if there is a Corona in California. And guess what? Yes, there is. It's the city of Corona, and it is in Riverdale, California, population about 150,000 people. But I mean, that's what would have come to our minds 3 months ago when we're asking, what do you think of when you think of the word Corona? But how about if we did that today? If somehow we could have all you guys just texting in immediately, what comes to mind when you think of Corona? And we would now wind up saying, the audience says disease. The audience says COVID-19. Survey says social distancing. Survey says economic disruption. Survey says hospitals full. Survey says people dying. Survey says anxiety. There is now a whole new set of words that we associate with this thing called Corona that just a couple of months ago we would have never had any idea. Our world has changed. Um, it's changed disruptively. There is a thing called disruptive change. And there's a couple of features to disruptive change. Number one, it is rapid. It just happens so fast. And isn't that exactly what we have experienced with this coronavirus? I mean, it just came out of nowhere. I mean, suddenly it's like the speed of a train and we're being run over, and it's repeated. It's not like it just happens once, but it happens over and over. And that's what we're experiencing almost every day. What's the new change that happened overnight that we wake up in the morning and find out about? It's almost like there was an earthquake, and in most cases, an earthquake, a strong earthquake, well, then there are aftershocks, and the aftershocks begin to sort of get less and less and less. But in this case, we've had this earthquake called Corona that happens, and the aftershocks are like stronger. It's like we're just getting earthquake after earthquake after earthquake. It's being repeated, and it's systemic. It's not centered on one location. It's just everywhere. And therefore, and by the way, this next word might be a little scary, but disruptive change is cataclysmic. It just has enormous consequences. And that's kind of what we are all in the midst of. Everything is being disruptive in those kinds of ways. By the way, I actually went back and did a little bit of thinking about what are some of the other disruptions that I've experienced that you have. By the way, for those of you who don't know, I'm a native Yorker and went to York Suburban High School, graduated, and Living Word was started in 1978. And I became a part of it, and in 1979, there was the near meltdown of 3 Mile Island. And man, was it in the news, and we were being told that this was about to happen. We had to evacuate. It was going to be a catastrophe of amazing proportions. And so people were already leaving. People were being told, get what you want from your home because there is a very good chance you will not be allowed to get back home for many, many years to come. The radioactivity could be so high. And so we were saying, what in the world do we take with us as we're trying to evacuate? And fortunately, we actually had a place that was not too far south of the external zone that we could evacuate to. That was our cabin down at the river. We could actually not have to be too inconvenienced. And by the way, Mom would have had to stay back because they were keeping medical personnel in the area to deal with all the. But that was disruptive for a moment, but then it went away. And even if it would have happened, the rest of the United States would have stayed pretty much the same. In 2001, I mean, we were all impacted by the 9/11 attack. I lived in upstate New York at the time. I was not back here in York with you guys when these things were happening, but in upstate New York, it was horrific. We were terrified. We were wondering what is going on, and a week or two were going by, and it's like, okay, I mean, things are changing, but life didn't stop. We had prayer meetings, but we had church on Sunday, and everybody was there. In fact, there were more people that were there, and life went on. It went on with a little more fearfulness, a little more caution, but life wasn't that disrupted. And the financial crisis of 2008, that was a pretty significant thing. It had repercussions around the world. But you know what? Right here at Living Word, and I was a part of the Living Word when it happened. We had to tighten our belt a little bit, but we had church on Sunday. We didn't stop doing anything that we were doing. So it was a little bit of a disruption, but it wasn't this massive thing that we're experiencing today. And even when we have these horrible disruptive events called Category 5 hurricanes, which Hurricane Michael on October 2018, it made landfall. It was extraordinarily disruptive, but had a small area of our country. And right away, everybody else is mobilizing resources to get there, and life kind of went on for most of us. But that's not what we're experiencing today. I mean, everything is being disrupted. And today, what we're talking about is, above all, our life together is being disrupted, and it's having all kinds of domino impact. This thing called social distancing. I mean, we're still trying to figure out. I mean, we're still making mistakes. I mean, how far apart do we need to be from one another? Becky and I were out walking the other night, and we saw some friends, and we wanted to go up. And normally, we would have hugged them and said, "Okay, how far away do we have to stay?" We're kind of doing some air hugs with them, social distancing, and a bit of a quarantine culture that is developing. I mean, how much do we need to isolate ourselves from one another? Not only that, but this has had immense implications. Is we can't get together in groups anymore, or at least not very large groups of 10. And so our culture is just built on getting together. I mean, one by one, we're losing the ability to connect in the ways that we did, and the economic consequences that are really, really striking. I mean, this is massive disruption. And it's so painful because we are meant to be in relationship. We're meant to be connected. I mean, that's what it is to be a human being. I sometimes playfully say we are not just human beings; we are human relatings. To be human is to connect with people and to love and to enjoy. And now so many possibilities that were just natural and daily and weekly and monthly rhythms. We're losing all of those things. We're not sure how to feel and what to do in response to that. We're made to be in connection, and we spend years building these very rich webs of network and connection and community, and suddenly we don't have them. And what do we do? What do we do with that? By the way, this is pretty fascinating. I mean, this is how much people are struggling with this. There are a lot of people that are just saying, "I'm just going to keep on connecting." I just saw the news. I mean, they're showing all these young people on spring break, and they're just down in some of these warmer parts of our country and partying together and being together and hanging out together in large crowds, as if this coronavirus doesn't exist. Do you know that right now the largest numbers of people being infected with COVID-19 is the age of 20 to 50? Because they're not listening to the social distancing recommendations. And so they're just ignoring that. And I get it. I mean, they don't want to lose these natural connections that are so very, very important. So the largest number of people being infected are those people that I'm not going to stop doing my relationship. And guys, I understand we got to pay attention to these things, or the consequences are going to be somewhat significant. Every now and then you might wonder, but do you get mature enough that you just don't need those things? And well, I was thinking about that. So in the scriptures, there's a guy named Paul, the Apostle Paul, and he's one of the most mature individuals that there is. I mean, just striking depths of spirituality and connectedness. Wow, he's an amazing guy. In Second Timothy, that's his last known writing, and Paul's in prison. Paul is separated from the love and friendship of the people that he has been doing life with. He actually believes he is going to be executed some months from now. And so Paul writes to Timothy, and Timothy was his not a family member, but he might as well have been. He refers to Timothy as a son, his son in the faith. Very, very deep relationship. Timothy became his protege. Paul invested himself hugely in this young man, knowing that in Timothy, he's going to have responsibilities to carry the mission of Jesus forward into the future. So he's like a son, he's a protege, but Timothy becomes a mature partner and colleague together with Paul. But more than that, I mean, he was this friend, this confidant. They did life together. So here's Paul in prison, mature Apostle Paul, and he's lonely. He's lost his connections, and he's missing Timothy. And so he says, Timothy, in verse 9, do your best to get here as fast as you can. I mean, Paul's missing Timothy big time. There's a pain, there's an ache, there's a need. And just a couple of verses later, this is so significant for Paul that he says, Timothy, can you do your best to get here before winter? Because Paul knows that Timothy is going to have to travel by boat to get there. And he knows the winter storms are coming. And he knows as soon as the winter storms come the Mediterranean is like lockdown. And Paul knows, Timothy, if you don't get here before winter, you're not going to get here until sometime in the spring, and I might not be alive that long. Oh, Timothy, do your best. I mean, as mature as Paul is, he had this deep need for a relationship. Well, okay, how about Jesus? He's God. Surely he doesn't need relationships, but it's so wonderful, so beautiful the dynamic depth of relationships that Jesus wanted, he needed, he pursued, and he built. I mean, in the very beginning, we read he called those that he wanted to be with him. They were the group of disciples. He just gathered a group of people. They were going to do life together in a very, very close way for the next couple of years. Relationships mattered to Jesus. Oh yeah, and from time to time he'd send them out, but they would always come back together and they'd sort of recalibrate and they talk about how things went. And I mean, you look at the life of Jesus, and we do read that very early in the morning, while it was still dark, he would get away by himself to pray because he also needed a connection with his heavenly Father. We're going to talk about that God connection that we need more than ever. That's next week. But then he'd leave that solitary place and go back, and his life all day long was filled with people. Filled with friends, filled with disciples, filled with inquirers, filled with people who are kind of seeking to figure this one called Jesus out. I mean, he had one-on-one conversations, he had small group conversations, he had large crowd conversations. He interacted with people in conflict because they debated about what's going on. I mean, his every single day was filled with people. And apparently Jesus really, really liked that. There was one time when some things were turning against him. And so people that used to be with him were starting to walk away. And there's this verse where Jesus, he looks at his disciples and says, are you guys going to leave too? And we have to sort of read the pathos into those words, but I just have a sense that Jesus is like, you're not going to leave me, are you? You're not going to leave. And then he gets to reassuring Jesus, there's no place else we can go. You're the one. We're not going to leave you. Later on, he calls these students, learners, disciples, to say, hey, you're not just, oh, you still are, but you're my friends. I love that Jesus said, you're my friends. Isn't it fascinating that Jesus wanted people to be his friends? Even a little bit later, he says to his servant, colleague, friends, you guys are even more than that. You're my family. Oh, so relationally rich. I mean, look, do you get too mature that you don't need people? The answer is no. You never get too mature that you don't need people. In fact, the more mature you get, the more you realize just how much you need people, how much you need life together. Our culture knows this. Some of the best, most fascinating movies are about relationships. So, of course, you know who that is. That's Tom Hanks, who, by the way, was infected with the COVID-19 virus, and it sounds like he and his wife are getting better and better. But the movie's Castaway, and if you can see the writing, he's getting ready to finally leave the island. It's been almost impossible. He's gonna try. He realized he's been alone for so long that he would now rather be dead than be alone. So it's been 1,500 days since he has been stranded on the island since the plane crash. Over 4 years. He says, I can't take it anymore. And so he leaves a little note just in case he doesn't make it. By the way, what's really fun, if we would have had a little more time, you know who this is, don't you? You know who that is? Well, that's Wilson. It's the volleyball. And that got washed up. And Tom Hanks, the ball was the closest thing he could see to a face. And so he started paying a little bit of face on there. He needed somebody to talk to. So he begins to talk to Wilson. And as you go through the movie, he's making Wilson look more and more alive. He's putting hair on him and do stuff. I mean, after a while, Wilson becomes like this person. That's how much Tom needed somebody to talk to. By the way, do you know, in I think it was 2000, might have been 2001, the Critics' Choice Award for the best inanimate object of a film was Wilson. Isn't that fascinating? They actually said, what's the best inanimate object? And I tell you what, I think this inanimate object almost became a person. We need people. Hey, on a much more modern, up-to-date movie, how about Matt Damon in The Martian? Um, Terrible accident. The crew has to escape. They think he's dead. So they left him behind, believing that he was dead. But he wasn't. He's alive. And he's now the only person on Mars. And he's lonely, but he's just going to fight for survival. He doesn't know if they're going to be mounting a rescue. In fact, he doesn't even know that they think he's dead. And there finally comes a point in the movie, and I hope you remember this. There comes a point in the movie where he realizes that he can make a connection. He can send a signal back home, and he sends a signal back, and he's just waiting. And suddenly, the mission central back there realizes they've gotten a message, and they send something back. And when Matt Damon realizes that they know he's alive, and he just starts crying. He's alone on a planet all by himself, and at least somebody millions of miles away on another, at least they know I'm alive. I mean, it's a powerful movie of loneliness and relationship. Hey, I don't know if you want to watch this one, man. If it's rough, but Leo, the bear mauls him, and oh my word, there's a scene in it where the bear's walking away, and I'm thinking, oh good, the bear's gone, and the bear's coming back, and I'm like shouting, Leo, get away from the bear, and it's a horrible, horrible mauling by the bear, and the movie is a heroic lesson in survival. But there's a part of the movie that was just fascinating to me. He meets another person, and they're wintering in like a tent. There's a storm blowing in, and there they are in the tent, just a tent. There's nothing in the tent but them and a couple supplies for weeks. They're isolated in there together. They have no cell phones, no books, no games, no deck of cards. It's just the two of them. And what they're doing for entertainment is every now and then they'll go out and they'll try and catch snowflakes on their tongue. I'm just looking and thinking, but at least they had one another in their isolation. You know, one of the worst things that you can experience is solitary confinement. It is a punishment. Solitary confinement is a punishment because we're not meant to be alone. We need to be together. And when people who are in solitary confinement, they develop severe mental health problems. I mean, the scripture makes it so clear we need one another. I mean, our culture gets that we need one another. And I know you get it. You know you need people. Man, I need people. By the way, I've been pretty fortunate because even though there's social distancing going on, I'm still connected with a lot of people I love. I'm still working together with people that we're just doing this missional partnership together, and I'm very, very grateful for that. But I mean, I'm missing you guys. I really am missing you guys. I mean, I'm missing some of the things that I normally see. You know, you come out on a Sunday morning and I won't be able to do this today, but you know, you come out and you want to sing. I mean, I'm just so used to. I mean, over there's a particular group of people, and I know they're going to be there. It's like week after week, they sort of gather together and they're talking. I go over and I hang out and I connect a little bit. And over here's a group of 3 people. I know exactly who they are, and they might even know who I'm pointing to. You know who you are, where you're standing. I go over and say hi, and I missed you guys, and I know you miss one another because we can't do life together right now the way we used to because we're scattered apart, and that's hard. So we just have to learn some new ways of doing life together. It's vital that we learn how to do that. I know some of us have different capacities for life together. We have some different needs for life together. You know, the extroverts. You know, this is I'm staying in tonight. Man, there's a whole lot of extroverts out there. Oh, social distancing. And then there are the introverts. Oh yes, I'm staying in tonight. Oh, you know, we're somewhere on that spectrum, but you know what? Even those of us who may lean a little more toward the introvert, after a while, you start to say, you know what? I'm tired of staying in tonight. I'm missing the people that I love and care about. Hey, I did run across this. You introverts out there, introverts unite. I like this. Yeah, introverts unite, at least occasionally, and in small groups for very limited periods of time. Hey, you know what? Even introverts need to unite. We all need to figure out how we're going to do life together in this season. I don't quite understand these lyrics that Barbara Streisand was singing. People who need people are the luckiest people. That doesn't even make sense. Now, if it would say, well, people who know they need people and people who do something about knowing that they need people, well, those are the smartest people. I mean, they know what they need and they do something about it. Then the song makes sense. But people who need people are the luckiest people. Well, no, we all need people. It's what it means to be alive. It's what it means to be human. It's what we're going to have to deal with in some pretty significant ways, as we cannot be together with the people that we're used to being together with in the ways that we become accustomed to. You know, this thing called social media, well, it's going to help us in some very significant ways. Now, you do know that for many years, the research has been coming out saying that if social media is your primary or your sole way of connecting with people, that's not really good for you. Social media connections, virtual connections, digital connections, those things are good as a supplement, but they can't be the substitute for real face to face encounters. Boy, this is so ironic. I just got this book. It's called Analog Church: Why We Need Real People, Places, and Things in the Digital Age. Now, by the way, this is not some old guy who's so frustrated with what's going on. This is a young, well-known millennial pastor. He's got a great church. He's got a great ministry. He lives in the world, the digital world, and he's saying, but you know what? It's not enough, and by itself, it's not very good. So we've already known that there are some problems if that's all we've got. And it's great as a supplement, but not as a supplement, not as a substitute for real face-to-face interaction. But right now, we have the ability to take this resource and start to figure out how can we use it in the very best way we can to be connected. And what I just want to do is I'm going to take about just another minute or two and tell you a few best practices. And if you will go to our website, you're going to find a couple things I mentioned with a bunch more best ideas from a number of our different staff. And you're also going to find a little diagram model that you can sit down and, well, you'll see what I mean by that in a moment. Number one, best practice. Wow, people around you, they're going to need your generous presence. They're going to need you to bring your best. They're going to need warmth, affection, care, caring, encouragement, especially because more and more there's going to be a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of discouragement. By the way, we have a workshop planned coming up. You'll be able to get the information about it and how you can tune in and how you can be a part of that digitally, virtually. And it's going to be on anxiety and stress and what to do about those things as we're living in the time of Corona. So just go to our website and check that out. And we're actually going to offer it a couple of times because we're already hearing from people. This is a pretty significant thing. So that's why more than ever, people are going to need your generous presence. Number two, so we're going to use this social media, but as best we can, don't just use text and words. Man, make phone calls, make video calls, you know, see one another, hear one another. We need that kind of dynamic. Number three, and here's where that little kind of that little diagram resource we're going to give you will be very, very helpful. You all have to identify your core community. Every one of us, we have some people that we are most positioned to who need us the most and we need them the most. We want to identify who those people are and be even more intentional and consistent about real, regular contacts with them. So be sure to identify who the people are that need you the most. And while you're doing that, think if there's anybody that you know, hey, they are probably pretty isolated. I don't normally connect with them, but I know they're going to have some even more significant needs. Think how you can wind up connect with them even more in this time. Hey, and here's what we're going to try and do. We are here to help you stay connected as best we can. We love you guys so much. We know we're going to go through some hard times, and we know we are in the early stages of life together in the time of Corona. We're going to figure this out. Hey, let's have a word of prayer. Lord, thank you for relationships. We are so grateful. We're so blessed by the people that you have brought into our lives. And now, in this time when we're feeling very scattered apart, we're going to need you to help us creatively and very consistently come together in the best ways possible. Lord, I know right now there's a few people in particular already really struggling with the social distance. And so we're just going to pray for your grace and your love to be poured forth on all of us. Thank you for this in Christ's name. Amen.